started this podcast because I have found that there are so many different ways to heal and to embody joy through healing that I wanted to share with you all of the ways, all of the different modalities, all of the different facets of healing that lead us to our path, to our soul mission, to our journey, to finding joy and to expanding into joy and abundance and exciting things and adventure through healing. And it is so overwhelming, so overjoying to have you here with me, listening to me deliver these incredible podcasts with incredible human beings who have just the most beautiful, light-filled souls, and I cannot wait to help you on this healing bridge. Hi everyone, welcome to the first Healing Bridge podcast episode of 2022. I am really eager to get really stuck into this episode. I go really in depth with a really good friend of mine, Adami. She is a human design analyst and a business coach, and she blends the human design concept into businesses, and she does that so seamlessly. And it is all about recognizing people for who they are and who they were basically came into this world to be and to embody. And that approach is so unique and really interesting, and the whole human design concept, how it was birthed, how it originated, and how it started to trickle into society is really interesting. And there is so much to it. If you've ever actually looked at your own human design chart, I'm sure you've looked at it and just been like, there is so much to actually explore in a chart here. And in this episode, we're not going to be touching on the basics of human design. We're actually going to go in a little bit deeper and talk about a little bit more of the intricacies of this art form of human design, so that you guys can really get an idea of how human design really works and how in depth it truly is to you as an individual, and why it's really important to actually fully, completely understand your chart as well, because that is just going to lead you to be able to use your energy in the wisest way possible, so that you're not completely, run down, or you're not expending energy where it's not being received well. So before we jump in, I am going to give you guys a really quick overview of what each of the design types are, so that you can understand a little bit more about what it is that we're going to be discussing. So I actually got these descriptions from a website called Raw and Ritual, and I will link that into the show notes below as well if you wanted to go and check it out. There is so much online about human design, and again, you can learn so much and gain so much from exploring this. But I really wanted to have Kat on the show because, again, it is so detailed and it is so unique to each and every person. No two human designs, I feel, will ever be the same. I think that would be such a rare occurrence, even with twins, because their birth time is different. So that actually creates something completely different as well. Anyways, before we jump right in, I will let you know what the 5 design types are. But after this, if you feel like you do need to go back and research some of the basics, feel free to reach out to Kat for any support that you may need, or if you want to book with Kat to have your own human design reading, or if you feel like having Kat come into your business and help to coach you through how to use your business strategies in the most energetically successful ways possible, she will be more than happy to help guide you on that path. But there's so much online. All you need to do is Google it. There's a bunch of Instagram pages that follow it. If you reach out to me, _Anita.McCaw on Instagram, and you flick me a message and you want to know a little bit more, I'll direct you to some of the pages that I use just for the basics. So feel free to reach out on those. So anyways, the 5 design types are a projector. So projectors are able to see into the energy of others and experience people in unique ways, which allows them to be great leaders. Their wisdom comes from seeing others, seeing a system, or seeing a concept in a new way. So these are the people who are really here to pave a new way of doing things, and their strategy is to wait for an invitation. Manifestors are meant to trust what they're being drawn to and to be the leaders of their own lives. They thrive in being able to initiate and create what they want when they are inspired. Manifestors are here to initiate and make the first move without needing permission. So basically, manifestors are the people that need to just gain that idea. Like, that idea will come to them, and then they'll be able to put it into motion without waiting for a response, waiting for an invitation. They will be able to pick it up and run with it. Generators and manifesting generators are the life forces of the human world. Ruled by the gut and the sacral center, they are doers, builders, and problem solvers. Together, they make up 70% of the population and have their sacral energy center defined, providing them with consistent access to energy. It's important for generators and manifesting generators to feel really fulfilled and satisfied by what they're doing, saying yes to things that are a yes for them, and saying no to all things that are not a yes. When generators and manifesting generators do things just because they should, their energy gets completely drained, and their strategy is to respond. The last human design type is a reflector, and reflectors are the seers of the design types, able to see and perceive the world around them and reflect it back to others. The reflector is a truth teller, showing the other types how well and healthy their environment is at any given time. So these are the 5 types, just briefly. There is so much more that comes into it. So you also have a strategy that you should be following. You also have profile numbers which line up with, ways of how you're seen in society as well. And you also have different energy centers and things like that activated. You have different bridges and different incarnation crosses, which is why I'm really excited to have Kat on the show, because we're going to dive into some of those more intricate questions that we don't really see answered as much as we possibly could. So without further ado, I am going to lead you right into this next podcast episode. I hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Healing Bridge podcast, Kat. I'm so excited to have you here with me. I'm so stoked that you are giving your time to this as well. It's such an awesome thing to have you here, because, your human design knowledge is so needed in this time right now. So I will say that basically your title is a human design analyst, and you're also a business coach as well. Can you just say hello to the people and just maybe elaborate a little bit on what a human design analyst and a business coach does?
That is just a beautiful introduction. Thanks, Anita. You're welcome. I'm so happy to be here as well. I've been really excited to share this conversation with you and with those who are listening, and I really love what you do. So I feel really honoured to be here. So thanks for inviting me onto the show.
You're so welcome.
And so, a human design analyst and business coach. I mean, it's really an amazing time for human design, really, that people are starting to become really aware of it. And for me to couple that with my business acumen and knowledge and everything that I've learned along the way has been my goal from the start in the way that I have used it. And it's really great to have all of that sort of come into a space now where people are really looking for that and seeking advice through human design for what's really going on. And it wasn't like that 10 years ago when I started. It's people didn't know what it was, from a bar of soap. So
definitely not. I only heard about it about 2 years ago, and when I found out I was a projector, I was like, bullshit. I was like, I'm not a projector. I don't want to wait for like an invitation. I just want to go and do things. It was definitely a really unique way to look at my energy and how my energy was being used. So I'm really excited to actually get to talk to you a little bit more about that today as well. But before,
and that's a perfect example of conditioning, actually, and how, projectors expect that they have to and should be the same as everybody else. And so it's a huge relief, really, to start looking at how you can do things differently and how much better that can work for you.
Absolutely. It's definitely like the biggest example. It's what I share with everyone. I'm just like, listen, human design, it's, knows its stuff. Like it's not led me astray once so far. So that's really, really good.
Yeah.
So before we jump right into the nitty-gritty, I do want to ask what your happiness recipe is.
Oh, I love that question.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it really is based in some of the elements of human design, because all of my decision-making process happens in the present moment and not a second later. So for me, my happiness recipe is about staying really present and making sure that I don't get pulled off track with things that clutter my present moment too much. So that really means that connecting with nature, giving myself time out when I need it, really monitoring the things that create overload in my life that stop me from being present, which, you know, when I'm overloaded, I can get very stuck in my head, which is also in my human design chart. So just staying really present and making sure that I'm doing things for myself, as well as, you know, my commitment to being there and being of service to others, and that I keep that in balance and in check. But I would definitely say time in nature. So whether that's, you know, that always balances me out and keeps me present. So it's a dive in the ocean. It's putting my feet into some little river system if I'm sort of up in the hills. It's taking the time to watch the sunset, or getting up early for a sunrise, or watching the moon. Just anything to do with nature just always brings me back home and keeps me uncluttered and present.
Oh, that is such a beautiful answer. That is so lovely. And I was going to say, when you were talking about the ocean or just like putting your feet into a river, I was like, Kat is such a mermaid. You're such like a mermaid queen. Just your whole being and presence and appearance. I'm just like, I love her so much. Like just that energy about you. It's definitely mermaid. Definitely mermaid. And that's why I think I'm just like, I'm a little bit in love with Kat. Just a little bit.
All right, back at you, sister. Look at you. You're like my mermaid sister.
Yes, definitely. Definitely Lemurian and Atlanteans. Definitely. For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and the next question is, what's the most joy-activating thing you've done this past week?
Oh, well, beautifully. It's actually the start that I had today to my day was exceptional. I actually woke up at 4 a.m, which is really unusual. It's way too early for me, but I had an amazing dream, and it got my mind ticking too early. So I was awake, and by about 5:15, I was just like, right, I'm done. I got up and I went down to the beach at South Beach in Freo here, and it was just stunning. The moon was still in the sky and setting, and there was nobody on the beach, and usually that beach was absolutely full in the mornings and it filled up while I was there.
Yeah.
But just did some yoga on the beach and did some cord cutting and a little bit of vibrational alignment stuff, which I'm really into at the moment. And we dived in at the end and had a swim, and the water was super clear. And you know, at the end of that, I went for a coffee with a friend and did a whole bunch of other things. By the time I got home and had a shower, washed my hair, and got to my desk at 9 o'clock, it felt like I'd actually had like a full half a day to myself already. And so the day has just felt really, really productive. And it's such a great reminder, you know, of just how a morning like that can really create a really fulfilling day.
Absolutely. And that just sounds like perfect. Just getting up, the moon's still in the sky, you get to go to the beach and have your space, and then it's just also that reminder, as like you were kind of coming to the end of that beautiful space that you had to yourself, that, you know, other people started coming into it, so that also would have been like a reminder of connection as well. That's so beautiful. Yeah, that's such an epic way to start your day. Definitely.
Yeah, I'm going to do that more often, actually,
although
today.
4 o'clock starts are a bit rough though. I'm doing my yoga teacher training, and they're like, yeah, between 4 and 6 o'clock in the morning is like the perfect time to like practice, and I'm like, pardon? I'm just like,
if you get to bed early enough.
Definitely. I am definitely not a morning person, but we shall see what happens in the future.
I know.
Yeah, I am sure that you do, but If you don't, I've chosen a crystal for you that I felt drawn to just to see where your energy is at. But if you do work with crystals in meditation and daily life, what one are you currently really drawn to?
Well, as you can see,
Yeah.
I've got a turquoise thing going on at the moment.
Yeah.
I've got turquoise in my earrings, in this little chain. I've got these little turquoise beads. But my favourite stone is this Peruvian opal, which is also a light blue. So just at the moment, I mean, I've always loved turquoise, but I just can't seem to get enough of it at the moment. But I'm really interested to hear what you've chosen for me as well.
Yeah, so I've actually chosen chrysoprase for you. Yeah, so
I love chrysoprase. And but can you tell me, remind me what the meaning of that is, what it's good for?
It's basically about abundant love and being connected to the earth, which is perfect for you. So abundant in, I guess, like emotional clarity, abundant in presence with the earth. And it's just really great to be connected and present, but also be led by your heart, which I really feel like you are. So it just combines all of those things, you know, groundedness, presence, and being heart-led. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. And thank you so much.
You're
it's really
so
lovely.
welcome.
I'll take that with me.
Yes, definitely. I was like, yeah, like I go and look at like all of my crystals and I'm like, this one. Yeah, so it's
really beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Okay, now let's jump into the nitty-gritty because I'm sure people are really interested to listen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the first thing I do want to ask is how human design came to be, kind of what its origin story is, because I know it's a combination of a few things. So I was hoping you could shed some light on that.
I love this story because, you know, it's set, you know, by this incredible experience that, you know, this Canadian guy, Alan Krakauer, had. You know, that was before Ra took on the name Ra-Uru, and he was, you know, in Ibiza, and he had this incredible download come through to him. And to be honest, the stories of the people who I've learned human design by, who have known him very, very well, said that in those years it scared him. He really didn't know what the hell had happened, and he spent quite a bit of time running away from it, but literally over a 10-day period he channeled the entire human design system as it is, as we know it today. I mean, it's developed over those years and he developed it, but really he talks about the way that he was just told to write. And he said, you don't ask questions, you don't say why or how, you just write, is kind of how he has, you know, talked about that. But, you know, it's the combination of, you know, of elements that existed on the planet that had never been put together in the way that he was told to integrate those things. And so, of course, it's astrology, because we have a birth time component of human design, which allows us to see the element of the neutrinos, which he talks about the neutrinos being where the planets are positioned. There's the matter in between has an energetic imprint on us, and astrology works in the same way with neutrinos, and that's why the planets have an impact on the way that the astrological chart shows up. But that for the very first time, human design put that together with the chakra system and the Chinese I Ching, and of course the Kabbalah, which is, you know, the interconnectedness of life and the tree of life, and, you know, that very ancient text, that Hebrew text. So the putting together of all of those systems together, I mean, you couldn't come up with that. Our imagination is just not clever enough. So it really does feel like that this is a download, you know, for us at this time on the planet, and what we need in our evolution to be able to kind of be more self-directed and understand, as human design calls it, the science of differentiation. Like, understand how you are unique and not expecting others to be the same as you, but actually how, you know, utilizing each other's authentic, you know, way of doing things, how we can actually be happier and not impose that on each other. So yeah, it's pretty amazing the way it came through, and to this day I just love the magic of the fact that it is a bit out of this world.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, and I love that I love that he was in Ibiza when it happened, which is like obviously like notorious for like, you know, dropping some tabs and like, you know, just going on a bit of wild ride, but I love that it happened there. And it sounds like such a hectic experience, especially since he was very, like, he was scared by it. So it was obviously something that was so unique and profound. And he didn't know quite how to channel it at first, it sounds like. Yeah.
So apparently even his dog, you know, was at his feet and didn't move for 10 days with him, didn't eat and didn't leave the room. Like, it literally was like a void that was created in the room that changed time or changed requirements or just our normal human kind of things. It is really, and that's why it freaked him out so much, I think, because he looked back on it and went, oh my God, like, what happened, you know? And it wasn't, I mean, you know, he tried to burn all of the texts at one point, and, you know, people were like, no, don't, this has got relevance, and that I was amazed by what you told me, and like, don't get rid of it. So, you know, I think, you know, for us to accept that, and it's definitely a really big component of human design, for us to accept that we do get guidance that is beyond what our humanness can quantify or understand, and that when we really attune with what I believe is our internal decision-making process, that is a direct connection with your higher guidance. But it is so hard to listen to it when there is so much other noise, and that is what we really look at, is how to attune to that and how to remove, you know, the noise and be able to identify where that's coming from.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. And how did you first come across human design? And then how did you start to integrate this information like into your personal life and then into your business life? You know, how did you do that? How did you first like stumble across it?
Well, I was a part of this really interesting alternative money scheme, and in those days it was called the Diamond. And there's we know about these, you know, there's lots of different names for them, but basically there's, you know, a central person, and it's anyone who joins puts in a certain amount of money, and it's like this ever like flow of money coming into this sort of center person, and as they leave, new people come in, and so everybody gets kind of funded in a goal or a dream. And I became a part of this group, and a girlfriend of mine told me about it. It was full of very, very strong and predominant wise people from all over the world, and some predominantly from the States. And the lady who was in the centre of my diamond was Carola Eastwood, and she is the partner, the wife of Shaitan Parkin, who is one of Right Uruhu's original students, and was with him at that time in Ibiza. And he branched off and created the Human Design for Us All International School in America, using everything and started teaching human design. So she was part of that group that I was a part of, and she told me what human design was that her and her husband did. And the day that I opened the computer and went, oh, what is that? I just wanted to research for the sake of it. I think a lot of people have this experience. They open the computer, research it, look at the charts and close the computer, because it's like, I don't really understand what I'm looking at. But it wasn't until, you know, a little while later, maybe even 2 to 3 months after that, that I was on my yoga mat one morning, and literally, like, I couldn't stay on my mat. I was like, the pressure for me to understand what human design really, really was overwhelming. And I got off my mat. My son was really little at the time, and I was like, if I didn't practice yoga then, I didn't get a yoga practice. And so it was, you know, just just after the sun had come up very early. And I got online to his website and downloaded a couple of free charts. But while I was researching, all of these threads were coming up, and Ra had just died the day, literally like 6 hours before this time where I was getting this information. And over the years, looking back at that, and, you know, certainly at the time when I realized, oh my God, like that when he died, it became like something within me that I just had a burning desire. And it was like a relationship, you know, when you meet somebody And from the moment you meet, you never lose contact with them ever again. Like, it's this deep, intimate relationship. That's how I've been with human design.
Wow.
And so from that day forward, I literally I was running my business. I had a young child. I would be getting up at, ridiculous hours in the night to do these study courses with Shaitan in the States. And after a whole entire year of doing that, I flew to the States and did my certification to become a certified analyst. But it was just like I couldn't get enough of it. And I'm sure anybody who has had an experience with the resonance that human design, can have in those initial kind of breakthroughs. I just didn't want to put it down once I picked it up.
Yeah,
we are still today.
Yeah, definitely smashing it, keeping goals. I love it. Yeah. Hey, and yeah, how did you start to integrate, what you sort of learned in those courses? Like, what was kind of, I guess, the first little nugget that you started to implement into your personal life?
Oh, most definitely the amount of times I used to make that gut reaction wrong.
Yeah.
And I would make myself wrong for it. I used to think it came from some kind of wounding or something that had happened to me that made me resistant to certain things. And I do think that our wounding is deeply, tied up in those responses that we get, and that we do need to sort of decondition that wounding enough so that we can be clear in the difference between those things. But definitely I started just playing around with that gut response and learning to fit language around it, because letting people down as an empath, which is what I am, was always, I would always just, previous to that, not think twice about going against my gut to be of service to somebody else. But after realizing that was the biggest thing that I got to play with, was to really see and experiment with the way I took on business in my business at the time, the way that when I'd walk onto a building site, or even when in those years I had a building industry business, even the feeling I'd get when the phone would first ring with a client, I'd be playing around with it to really experiment with it.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I think when I first found out about, human design, as I've spoken to you about, I was definitely very resistant to what my strategy was. And then I started to play around with that and just be like, okay, so, you're a manifesting generator, right? Yep. So,
yes.
Playing around with your gut feeling, that makes sense to you. And then for me, I'm a projector with an emotional authority. So how you and I make decisions and how we strategize our life is very different to one another. So yeah, when I first kind of started dipping the toes in, I was definitely like, my strategy is to wait for an invitation. And I was sort of like, I don't want to wait for an invitation. So I was resistant to that part. But then when I did, the results would just be that much better. It would just be way more in flow. And I've been, kind of more aware this past year, 6 months, definitely just very hyper aware of not making emotional decisions, because that's where my decision making comes from, is my emotions.
Totally.
Fun time for Anita.
And this is the experiment that we've got with ourselves, and that's why it does become fun and playful, and why we shouldn't take it too seriously. I mean, we really have a vehicle that we've got no idea how to drive, and the only way that we can learn is to be playful and experiment with that and see what happens. Go against it.
Yeah.
Give it a go.
Go against it. Yeah. Cause a shitstorm. I don't care.
Yeah. And have some hindsight. Look at what happened last time, and really, to reprogram ourselves on anything, takes conscious awareness and to do things differently. And so, I'm really proud of what you have done in the work that you have put into really, really coming into alignment with your chart. And I have the same trust with human design, and I really impart that with my clients too. It's like, when I've seen it, the amount of times that I've seen it, it's like, that if you give it a go, as much as it might seem a bit foreign to you to do things differently, we get resistance a little bit doing anything new, and certainly when we're breaking patterns. So it's expected, like what your experience was, which is to feel a little bit like, oh,
yeah,
that feels uncomfortable.
Yeah, definitely. And again, like as a projector, like we're raised in a society which is run by people who are just like doing, like, so like that's the majority of people around us. And like, I'm over here with my like hot milk and my little blankie, and I'm like, can I just have like 5 minutes, please? I think. And the rest of the world is kind of like, really? Like, what are you doing right now? And I'm just like, no, trust me, this is going to work. Like,
I saw the best projector meme the other day, and it was this very glamorous woman lying back on a couch, and the tagline is "into resting, not interesting."
That's such a projector thing. So me is that like everyone, like I'll text my friend sometimes and she'll be like, are you seriously going to nap again today? I'm like, yes, of course I am. Like if I need to, I'm going to nap.
Right. And I'm not going to feel guilty about it.
No, hell no. It's so funny, like the things that you pick up on, and like the little things that you could feel guilty for, you're just like, no, this is actually what my energy needs right now, so I'm going to do it. So I'm so grateful for that, like from human design, so grateful for picking up on that. That also kind of leads us into our next question. You touched on it a little bit at the start, saying that obviously human design has a connection with astrology, but I was going to ask, how do you feel that, human design differs from astrology, like specifically in the way of energy? Because astrology and cosmic energy seem to happen to us, whereas, with human design, it's like we're actually in control of our energy and the, I guess like the cosmic weather and the energy that's kind of compressing us. It's like human design is actually giving us ways to, I guess, deal with that always, not dependent on what's actually happening with the planets. Like, whether or not Mercury's whether or not Mercury's in retrograde, whether or not it's a full moon. Obviously, you and I would, like, we would believe that there is an impact there, but how we control it has no difference between, whether it's a full moon or a new moon. We stick to what, our strategy is. So, yeah, if you could maybe touch on or expand a little bit more on how it differs, especially energetically. Yeah.
I really, really love this question, and I think it's a really prime point in the way that human design is an evolution of astrology. And it is because it takes into account this, this much more through the combination really of the I Ching and the chakra system, and being able to find that internal guidance and strategy that we all have that astrology doesn't really talk about. It's got all those other elements, of course, which is the neutrino element and the way that, those planets have an impact on our nature and even nurture environments that we are born into. But this next thing, which is taking control of the way that your body is and having the trust in your body to be able to guide you in every present new moment that you arrive in. This is something that astrology doesn't really talk about and is a really key factor in human design, and the main thing that I like all of my clients to really get a handle on, because being self-directed and knowing what is right for you is really key to that happiness factor, and being able to weed out, things, wasted time and resources and energy in taking pathways to experiment with them. I love astrology. I still enjoy looking into the back end of my astrology transits in particular and seeing those bigger things of chunks of time that are coming into my life or that I'm experiencing, that where I might go, okay, I have a time here where I've got a Pluto opposition Sun transit going on, and I'm going to be getting a lot of, stuff here coming in that I know I'm going to have to deal with and be resilient towards. And so, I do, and therefore I'm going to have to know my human design really, really well to navigate clearing out this stuff where these astrological components are really important to kind of understand. So I don't think that astrology is defunct at all. I still really love it. It does show what's coming at you, what's coming up, those bigger things that are in the space there, and I do believe in the whole philosophy of everything around it. The human design, it takes it to another level, which is how do you then navigate when you have all these external things happening that you need to work through.
Absolutely. It's like a prescription. Like I would even say it's like, kind of to take it back to the most simplistic way, it's like a doctor kind of handing you a diagnosis and then coming in being like, this is what you need to do. This is your prescription. This is how you handle it. This is how you move past it. Yeah. So
I love that. I love that analogy of that.
Yeah. That's what I kind of think of when you speak to it and everything like that. It's, and because there's so much to human design, like you said, like when you first look at it, you look at the chart.
It's a rabbit hole.
Yeah, absolutely. And
it can overwhelm yourself, So it's the thing about the whole thing is that you need to take it in bites.
Yes.
And that's why I say to people, keep your readings, record them, download them, keep them, because what you can receive today might be different to what you'll receive in a year's time. And we just, and there's always more.
Oh, definitely. There is always so much more. And I think that's what really kind of drew me to having a session with you as well, one-on-one, because I was only just getting surface level stuff for such a long time. And I was like, okay, but now I need to kind of know what this gate means, what this incarnation cross means. Like, what the hell's going on? Basically, like, I get what my profile is. I get what my strategy is. I get what my authority is. Now what? Like, am I not self-theme? It's like, I get it, but what else? Which is fantastic, which is why we have the beautiful cat Adami, because she knows and she can tell us. But yeah, so I think as well, like one of the big things for me is, again, with like managing our energy and being able to direct our energy in the best, most, influential and abundant way possible. So the way that things are going to work out better for us is our strategy, depending on design. And I know that online, from my experience, is that, the strategies are very vague. So for example, my strategy is to wait for an invitation, and your strategy as a manifesting generator is to respond. And I just was hoping that you could kind of maybe like go into a little bit more detail on like each one, just so people could kind of see the difference. Because to me, as a projector waiting for an invitation, and as a generator and a man-gen, like waiting to respond, they just seem very similar to me. So could you maybe kind of expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah, great questions, And just to talk a little bit on the previous insight as well, the thing about human design is that you can do a lot of online self-research. But what often happens in that is you're getting like a chord of a full song or a note, you're learning that one piece. But how that actually creates the entire composition is not something that you can understand until you fully understand all of the layers of human design together. And everybody has a story or like, something that runs through the chart that creates the entire chart. So it's fantastic that all of those online resources are there, but they never really tell you about those really much more intricate internal dynamics. So, even being, an emotional projector, you could still be like through the heart center, and so even though you're a projector, you still got that energy driven from the heart center. And there's nothing within the human design texts that are going to talk about that, because it's too far down the rabbit hole. Yeah. And they have to be interlaid with everything else that's in the chart. So, for example, to answer that specific question for you, the projectors the reason that the projectors are waiting for the invitation is good to understand, because when you know that you don't have your own resource of internal energy to drive forward to achieve a particular goal or outcome, the energy is a little bit like a piggyback. So it needs a piggyback. So the recognition is basically somebody already sees you and invites you to get on their back. And so in that way, you're not just like coming up behind someone and jumping on their back. And then they're like, oh, I didn't even know you were there. And you're like, yeah, I just need to go over here. So the recognition gives you permission to piggyback.
Yeah.
And so, and in that way, you can bring the best of yourself into that energetic process with somebody else. And also, oh my God, your doggy, so gorgeous.
I know.
I'm a huge animal lover.
Yeah.
So for a projector, the waiting for the invitation is tied into that recognition point, that somebody can see what it is that you're bringing to the project or the experience that they're having, and they invite you to come along. And that way you're not exhausting your energy by having to kind of push. And a lot of projectors can still push, but it will exhaust them. And so you can't do that regularly to yourself and not end up in, some energetic slump on the other side. So for a projector, it's really about realizing about that piggyback process that needs to happen energetically for you to not feel depleted. And you'll know whether you have or not, because you'll either get home and you'll feel energized from an interaction with someone, or you'll feel depleted and tired and exhausted and like you need to go to bed. So with a generator or a manifesting generator, they're also waiting for an external thing to happen before they know what their decision is. But for them, it's a little different, because they're waiting for a gut response. What they're actually waiting for is that the manifesting element of the manifesting generator it needs to be talked about separately. But the straight generator, it needs a gut response. The gut isn't like it needs an external situation or impulse for it to even get a response from the gut. Otherwise, what it's doing is it's creating manifesting elements, like getting out and doing, before the gut has had an opportunity to actually say yes or no. So the generator's wait is not for an invitation as such. It's actually for an internal gut response to something. And that's why they might feel the same in the waiting game, and they both are talking about waiting, but the actual what they're looking for are two separate things.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like, something being presented to a manifesting generator or a generator, and like, oh, okay, cool, yep, I'm gonna go and take this and like work on this. And for a projector, it's like, oh, I can see this is what we need to do, but I just need to wait for somebody else to be like, hey, what do you think? And then we can pipe up, and then we can just be like, all of my wisdom here on a platter, because you've asked me for it, I will tell you everything, sort of thing. So, and it does, yes. It's so makes so much sense to me now. So in my everyday life, if I'm, especially like with work situations, I'm a very vocal person. Hello, podcast host, of course I am.
And one of your key leadership channels comes from your self-center to your throat.
Yes, exactly.
So, absolutely.
So I'm very vocal and I'm very opinionated, and if I have an opinion, I like for it to be heard. But yep, it's not always the case that other people want to hear that.
So waiting for the invitation to speak, my love, is what you're waiting for.
Yeah, or like it's more so like waiting for an invitation, I guess, for my expertise to be heard, like, because
correct.
I'm not going to feel that need to speak unless I know what I'm talking about. If I've got no clue, I will sit down and shut up. But if I've got an idea, I'll be like, pick me, please, kind of thing. Like, just, like, I know the answer. like that annoying kid in class. But yeah, and then so what about manifestors and reflectors?
Oh, I'd really love to speak about that manifesting element, particularly for the manifesting generators, because they do still have, so a straight manifester, they have the ability to constantly reach out into new territory energetically. And that's why they say manifestors need to inform, because otherwise they look like a runaway train and nobody knows what they're doing. So they're just like, what are you doing now? Sorry, what? When? Oh, you're what? Like, so they can often impact the people that they're with and make them feel in that way of always, you know, cutting new territory and doing new things, and people can feel kind of like left behind or they're not part of the team. And so, you know, this is what I'm talking about. Sometimes the internal dynamics of a chart can make a really big difference with the way a manifestor operates. If you've got all your circuitry in the individual circuitry, for example, and you're a straight manifestor, I mean, you know, these are things you need to know about yourself in the way that you'll trigger people if from just, you know, being on your own pathway. So, but a manifestor actually really loves to reach out into new territory. So in a business sense, the generator is a perfect person to be, let's say, within a shop where people are coming into the shop and they're just serving people as they walk in. Like, they're absolutely on fire. They love the ability to just respond. Whereas a manifestor, they make great, you know, on-road like business development managers, you know, knocking on doors, creating new contacts, creating new leads out of nowhere. You know, so that manifesting element absolutely thrives on new territory all the time. So with the manifesting generators, for example, what can happen is the generator element, which is told to wait, also has the ability to instigate. And so, but sometimes they'll instigate against what is right for their gut. So what always happens, and I love this kind of, I call it the catch on the door for manifesting generators, is that if they've done this process against what is really right for them, when they actually go and put their energy behind what they're going to do, as they actually try and instigate the actual energetic flow of that decision, like, they just don't want to go anymore. They don't want to do it. And they don't even want to get ready. They don't want to get in the shower. The thought of opening the door and walking out the door, it's like everything's, the whole energy is trying to stop them as they're going. So, you know, again, you know, the internal dynamics of a chart will explain more about the other things that are at play with that in regards to letting people down, or not saying yes when you mean yes, but on the other way, saying yes when you meant no. So that's really that side of it. Now with with reflectors, for all my reflectors out there, as you well know, you know, it's an absolute minefield of getting pulled off track with everybody else's wants and needs and the whole way of operating like everyone else should. And so, you know, the internal dynamics of the chart, again, really show where those moon transits sit, so that you can see over a period of time for reflectors, and they say over this month time. So you think it's hard being a projector and having to wait for an invitation? Our poor reflectors have got a much harder job of this.
Yeah.
But as a reflector, understanding how the moon cycles through your chart, and one day you can be an emotional decision maker, another day you can be a sacral decision maker. Now, we all have the ability to use the moon in our charts the way a reflector is told to use the moon in the chart. So, you know, but for reflectors it's more important, especially on really big decisions, that they find their own guidance with that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's such a huge thing. And that's just one thing, guys. That is just one thing that your human design chart tells you. And, you know, it's so in depth already, like, and that is just one surface level thing. And as Kat was saying, you just don't get the intricacies online. Like, you get them with somebody like Kat, who, as you can tell, knows her shit and can be like, hey, look at all this other stuff that's connected to all this other stuff, and then your mind's basically going to be blown. But you also deliver it in a really easily digestible way, which is something that I loved as well. Like, as with like sitting down with you, is like, you know, you set it all out, and explained it so well. But yeah, just your strategies, like, and just the explanation of strategies is such a huge part of human design, but it's just one part. It's just one surface level part. It's not even like the biggest part. That's, yeah. So it just blows my mind every time I talk about human design. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, it's so fucking, it's huge. It's huge, but it's so good at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just think, you know, we all take on information differently, and language is you know, it can be such a huge blocker. And, you know, if you start using a lot of different, if someone who has no esoteric background, you know, it's like some of the men that I've worked with in business around the human design, you know, so if you start talking about gates and channels and channeled information and, you know, and the I Ching and everything, you know, you've lost them already. It's like if you don't know enough about astrology and someone's talking about transits and, you know, oppositions, you know, the language can be a really big difference between you understanding something and really integrating it and not. Yeah, so I really do a lot of work to really make sure that I use a language that somebody can deeply understand for themselves. And yeah, thanks for reflecting that back to me, that, you know, that is something I really do attempt to
yeah, no,
to do for people.
You did, and it's such a talent of yours to realise that certain people would need this information to be given to them in a different way. So, and it's something, you know, myself, like, I get called blunt quite often. Like, I just say it. So for me, it's like, and it's
Love
so,
that.
yeah, it is like, I'll just say it, I'll just blurt it out. I should probably like kind of rein that in a little bit and maybe be a little bit smarter and more direct consciously of how I'm responding to people and things like that. But it's like, I'll just say, I'm like, what do you mean you don't get it? I just told you it. Like this. That's it. That's all of it. Whereas, you know, to have someone to be able to sit back and be like, how is this person going to be able to consume this knowledge? And how is this person going to be able to consume this knowledge? And I think that is so part of your power and your magic, which is really nice to be in the presence of. And, you know, it's just lovely to see how different people operate with their communication styles. So it's really awesome to see. Yeah,
your chart talks a lot about the way that you communicate like that, so you should never feel bad about that, you know. And really, it's just, you know, all you have to, like, this is the direct way that you communicate. And actually, it's the leadership part of your chart, which I really love, that you have that and you host that within yourself. But of course, you know, sometimes, you know, there's the element, that gate 43 that sits up, that just blurts things out. I mean, you know, you can't make yourself wrong for something that is intrinsically you. But you just, you know, monitor, like, is this my time to speak? Is this the time for me to be sharing my wisdom? That projector element that, you know, when somebody asks you for your advice, oh my gosh, you know, they're all ears, and, you know, you can really have an amazing impact on them.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that makes me, it's definitely my calling, it's definitely my purpose. And that is obviously how my podcast was, you know, how it came to be. I was like, you know what, people need to hear some things about how they can grow and, like, you know, remove blocks and things like that. So it's definitely, I've always known that communication and speaking was part of my life's purpose, and it's just, you know, going and expanding with that. And yeah, following what feels good for me. So yeah, that makes me feel really lovely when you say stuff like that, and like knowing that, you know, as you can, you're like, you know, yeah, your chart speaks a lot about talking and like leadership qualities, and I'm just like
yeah, don't shy away from that anymore, right?
Yeah. It's just funny, as you know, as we've had discussions about before, like when you're, you know, kind of a strong, empowered female in a male-dominated field, as I am in the mining industry, as you were in, you know, in building companies and things like that, and walking onto sites, you can, yeah, definitely rub people up the wrong way, and yeah, I guess, you know, break the mold a little bit. So, which is really fun.
Yeah, you know, we're not here to please everybody and to be friends with everybody, but we are here to be the most, you know, authentic version of ourselves. And so if you're bringing the best of yourself to a situation and it rubs people up the wrong way, it's like you have to hold the space for that.
Yeah.
You know, for yourself. And that takes self-love and it takes self-awareness, because, you know, sometimes the most authentic version of us will upset people.
Yeah.
And knowing how to stand there and hold that space for yourself and for others actually is the difference between you being either empowered or in collapse.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And it's, you know, I think the biggest thing we all need to unlearn in some form or the other is our people-pleasing tendencies. So it's like, I think it's the biggest thing, the biggest freaking thing. You know, even if I do something that's out of spite to prove someone wrong, that is actually still a people-pleasing tendency, because it's like that desire to prove them wrong, but to show them that I've done a good job. You know, if that makes sense. So that's still a people-pleasing tendency that I need to like, you know, nip in the bud. I need to get rid of that.
But again, you know, your commitment to looking at yourself and actually being willing to look at that element of yourself is what's going to create your own evolution, and why I adore you so much. Because, you know, to look at yourself like that, you have to have the willingness to confront your strategies of your ego.
Yeah, for sure.
And the more that you break that down, you know, really, weirdly, the more empowered you actually become when you can take those things out of your life and have no need for that.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's all about, you know, we're never done healing, really. It's like there's always something. Yeah, always
Never.
something. Yeah.
I know, the more that I learn about myself, the more I feel like I don't know anything. It's a really annoying thing.
It's annoying.
It's like,
yeah.
oh gosh, really? Oh no, I'm going to keep going now.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
a whole other layer.
Yeah, I know. But it's kind of fun. Sometimes it's kind of fun, because then like you look back on this like shell of a person that you were, and you're like, oh, look at me now. Like it's fun when you get to the other side of it. But hey, all right, sorry, we went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but my next question is what is a single, triple, and split definition?
Yeah. So a single definition, and what that's referring to. So if we look at the centers, which are the chakra component of the human design system. So of course, we've got the crown and the mind and the throat, or I like to think of it even as like the left brain and the right brain, you know. So let's just picture this chakra system, and I'll give you an example of what a single definition chart would look like. So a single definition would be where all of the coloured centres, you can draw a connecting line with all of them, and there's no breaks in that line. So a single definition is when there is no break between the connections between those chakra sense or the centers. So you could have, for example, from the mind, the anya to the throat to the sacral, and the sacral to the root in one stream. Everything else white.
Yep, okay.
That would be a single definition. A split definition might be, let's say, the crown to the anya, so the crown to the mind, and then we've got a white throat. And then we've got the heart center to the solar plexus, to the emotion center switched on. So now we've got a split between one way of your anchored awareness where those centers are, and everything else is white. So now we've got a gap. So those splits can happen 1, 2, 3. You can have a 4, but it's less common.
Yeah.
But it can happen. And so what it means is that, for example, I've got a split definition in my chart. So I've got my crown to my mind switched on, and then I've got not a connecting channel from my mind to my throat. But then I've got my throat to my sacral center. So what happens to me with my energy is I can get stuck in my head. So because there's not a way for that stuff in my mind to come down into my throat, one of the things I've had to be very watchful of, particularly if I'm highly emotional, is not cutting off. So for me, I don't have a connection from my emotions to my throat. So for me to discuss my emotions, I've always had some struggle with that. But, the thing about the way that we interconnect with other people is that those splits in our chart can actually be made up through the dynamic of connecting with somebody else. And that we call them electromagnetics in human design, and how the way that we interact with others can really work for us. So if, for example, even if you've got, a triple split in your chart, you've got a really big decision to make, that you've had a gut response, but your emotions sit separately, and your head sits separately. They say, you can even just go and sit at a cafe and be around other people when you're trying to make those decisions. Don't isolate yourself, because then you can get all of those parts to align. But even better, having conversation with somebody about how you feel, who's not going to tell you what to do, who's just going to ask you questions so that you can feel the resonance in your own answers and in your own voice, and feel your own, given questions back, and find out where your gut is, what your gut responses are, or think about where your emotional, wave pattern is with that. And that's why we really need each other as humans, and why we all need people that we can go and seek and talk to when we're having, trouble with the decisions, whether it's a counselor or a human design coach or analyst like I am, or whoever it is, that this is how and why it's really important. So understanding your splits can really help you to know, am I someone, when I have a big decision that I have to make, am I someone who actually really needs to talk about that and have other influences, and then also being very careful about who those influences are, and that you're not getting advice and opinions, but you're getting somebody who knows your design enough to ask you questions, so that you can find your own guidance around those things.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that explanation, because I had no idea. So I know that I'm also a split definition, but now I also know, what that means. I'm sure you did go through it with me. I think I was definitely focused on the gates. So that is actually that's one of our questions, is definitely what can we learn about ourselves from knowing what gates are active and switched on and connected, because I know there's obviously a difference there with whether or not they're connected, and whether they're half full and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we call them hanging gates when they're coming out of a white center, and that they've got a slightly different impact. Well, the traditional human design text on those gates, which are, let's talk about it through your chart here. So you've got, out of your white, your heart center is white in your chart, and you've got your sun sign, which is gate 21, the gate of control that comes out of your heart center, which is white. So we call it the hanging gate. So this is a dynamic which actually is going to play a really big role for you in the way that that gate shows up for you. It's your unconscious sun sign, which is in the gate of control, coming out of a white heart center. So you're going to, when somebody invites you to take control of something for them, that is where you are at your absolute finest. And then you can take that on 100%, and you are in complete leadership within that role for yourself. However, what can happen with those white gates is that they're looking for those other connections. So if you come across a work colleague, for example, who's got the gate 45, on the other side of that, you're going to get an ego dynamic, heart-centered willpower struggle with that. And because it's a hanging gate and it's looking for a connection, it's like those lock-ins that happen. I'm sure you know and are familiar with what that can feel like when there's any kind of confusion about who's meant to be in control, especially if you've been given control of the project or that you're expecting full control, and yet, dynamics and workplace dynamics mean that, somebody else might think differently about that or try and impose that on you. So they're just subtle things of understanding the way that those dynamics play out for you. If you had the entire channel, which is the gate 45 and the gate 21, both of the gates creating the channel of that one element, then that would also create a very different way that you operate with that heart center. But, ultimately, you've got nothing to prove. Proving yourself and trying to take control when it's not given to you is going to have you deeply disempowered and create many, many problems for you. So they're just understanding those really internal dynamics is really important. Of course, when a gate comes out of a coloured centre, there might be another channel. It might be the gates, when they meet each other, they create the channel, as I've already said, and that's what activates these centres and becomes an anchor point, somewhere where you can land as your own internal process. This is like your most empowered place that you can actually be. And we recommend to really understand those gates and whether even the line numbers of those, and really understand what your energy is here to really express in its most empowered way. And of course, when it's in a gate coming out of a white centre, understanding that they're gates that you use best for others, not necessarily for yourself. And again, that why I'm saying about your chart, because you're a projector, when you're invited to use your control for others and you're recognized for that, that's where you really are standing in your most empowered, but also can get some potential pitfalls to watch out for in the way that egoic willpower struggles can happen if there's any confusion about who's meant to be in control.
See, again, there's so many gates, guys. Like, there are so many. So many, but also interesting. And again, like knowing your anchor points and and then your strategy, and you just combine it all, then it just becomes your little own source of power, because you've got this knowledge behind you. You know what your power is. It's like human design is basically letting you know what your power is and how to best use it, and that is how I viewed it.
Absolutely. Understanding your little personal superpowers.
Yeah, definitely. And then I think as well, so many people wonder about that incarnation cross, because obviously there is such a huge amount of incarnation crosses out there. So could you let us know what an incarnation cross is and why that's important?
I absolutely love the incarnation crosses, by the way. There's 112 of them.
Wow.
So there's a lot. I can never ever remember all of them, but I do know some of them better than others. But basically, the incarnation cross, and we really do use this a lot when we're doing business coaching, because when you're utilizing your cross in the way that you go about your work in life, it's this really deep sense of purpose. So the incarnation cross is about life purpose, but it actually comes from the placement of the sun and the earth, both conscious and unconscious within the chart. So those 4 gates, which is the predominant neutrino energy that you live your life by, it's more than 70% plus of the majority of the energy that comes to you. So when you realize and can understand what your incarnation theme is, and how it applies to the dynamics in your chart. Again, it's like having one chord. You can't isolate that one chord. You have to lay it into everything else to create the entire song. But that incarnation cross is a really great guide for all of us to be able to see what is it that that I'm going to bring into any situation that I go into. And that's why sometimes you don't even have to worry what career you're in or what it is that you're actually doing. As long as you're bringing this part of yourself into anything that you do, there is a deep sense of satisfaction about achieving what it is that you're here to do for yourself and for others.
Yeah, which I love. And then I have like the left angle cross of demands. So, and I know that yeah, so that also goes with basically having having quite vocal channels and connections and things like that, and why my throat is actually, activated. So my left angle cross of demands basically means that I'm demanding society to do better, by the way, guys. So
one thing you would know is like, how hard is it just to be cool, guys, and just do things like this? Like, I'll show you. Look. I have another girlfriend with that incarnation, and we joke about it all the time. She's always looking at ways that she can bring about education and awareness for people to raise the bar, raise the vibration, raise the awareness.
Yeah, absolutely.
And very cool.
Yeah. You've also got a really cool incarnation cross as well. What's yours,
Kat? I do. Mine's a bit ouchy.
No, I like it.
It's the incarnation theme of upheaval.
Yeah.
My life has done these like huge flips at different junctions. I feel like I've lived 4 or 5 lifetimes in one. But it comes from the 4 gates, which are associated with the fighter and provocation, and which is really standing up for a cause and not letting things slide when they really mean something. And also the gate of improving and always wanting things to be getting better and on an uphill and an upwards journey, and along with a mental gate called following, which is about seeing all sides of a story and creating opinions and really trying to find what's really right. And so, it does mean that when things get off track or when circumstances change, is that I kind of flip it, they say don't put the baby out with the bathwater. I would just make sure the baby's still in my hands and I throw the bathwater out. But I'm really good, therefore, with people who need to make change in their life. And also I'm really good with systems and upheaving systems. And a lot of the things that I've done when I go into any kind of workplace is kind of look at the way things are operating, look at what people are doing, and then create change through doing things differently. And certainly I get to do that with bringing human design into the business arena. And even when I wasn't doing that with human design, I would do it with systems. And one of the companies I work for, I completely changed the entire company onto a different operating system. Upheaved everybody. They're now running in a much better place than they were before, but it does come with its own little chaos stick, for a little while, because change does, for a little while it creates a lot more, stimulation and mental thinking than just being the same old rut.
Yes, definitely. So that is actually what your specialty is really, and what you're moving into is using all of this knowledge of human design and integrating it into business models and helping people to achieve successful business models or successful businesses themselves. Can you let us know how human design works really well in a business, especially regarding people and I guess management as well?
Absolutely. Well, in all the businesses that I've owned through my life, having the right people around me to achieve the business outcomes has been the most important thing. And also, recognizing that when you put the wrong person in the wrong role, the amount of wasted resources of training somebody up just for them to say, oh, I don't really like that, or they gave you an amazing resume and when it came down to it, they couldn't quite fulfill that for a lot of other reasons, maybe not knowing themselves well enough or wanting the job more than what they were willing to talk to you about, what their real downfalls are. And I just really love empowering leaders to basically understand themselves and how to get the best out of a team of people that they need to achieve those larger goals, whether it's their business or their role is hinging on other people supporting them. And when we start looking at teams and building your own self-awareness in a workplace environment, I still do a lot of personal readings for people outside of the business arena, but what I love about taking human design into business and all the body of work that I have rewritten of human design, taking out all those esoteric language components so that it is digestible in the business arena and with men and with people who don't have astrology understanding or anything else. This is an area where, we spent the majority of our lives at work. What we do in our work impacts our personal life, the way that we come home at the end of the day, either happy, impacting our families or not. And in this arena, there is, I think, the most amount of change and the most amount of upheaval that I can offer into the world to help people, in their work life, just look at things differently and get more from themselves and the teams of people that they have around them and the closest people that they have to work with. That I'm really deeply passionate about.
Definitely. And I think I cannot wait to see this just take over, and then just, I guess the old system is just going to be like, what? People are happy at work? What the fuck? Like, how is this happening? Like, this is not what we intended, guys. Like, I just think that is such a revolutionary idea, and I think it is so needed as well because of the amount of discourse and personality clashes and things like that, and then differing values and beliefs and management styles that people need, So I, for myself, like, it may work for some people, but when, one person is micromanaged, they may work really well with that. And then I am going to be on the brink of telling that manager who's micromanaging me to go get fucked, like, at any given moment, because I don't do well with that. Like, I'm just like... Of
course not.
No, yeah.
You're 6'2".
Yeah.
Unless the person above you is somebody, equally got your measure, who you highly respect. Yes, it's always going to be that way for you.
Yeah. I won't say anything that will get me fired. So, yeah, I think that would actually be, like, a really cool question. Like, what advice would you actually give to my manager to manage me? I'll let him know. Like, I'll send him this little snippet afterwards. Yeah, here's some free advice. Yeah, here's some free advice for you.
To minute 100.
No, but yeah, please.
You're a 6'2", so you need to be put in a position where you can express. You're still gonna, because of your age, because you're 30, and yet you're still carrying so much wisdom beyond your years for your age. The truth is that you still need experimentation. You still need new stimulus all the time. And so, but you also don't, that you're great with the overview. You're really good at seeing the bigger picture. And as a projector, I would also be taking that into consideration as well. And I would have you in communication and management roles. And I certainly wouldn't be micromanaging you, but I would be giving you the overall goal of what we need you to achieve. And really looking at your ideas of how you think you can achieve those with the team that we give you to delegate what needs to be done. And if you're getting delegated to, it's going to be really hard for you as well. Unless you're delegating to others as a projector, you will burn out at some point. There will be an end date. To what you can do. And so it's really tricky because, of course, we're talking about tailoring a role to suit you. But, if you're valuing personnel, if you're really valuing what somebody is here to give and untapping the resource that actually exists within your team, these are the kind of things that we all need to be looking at with the people that are around us that we need support from and that we look for to support us. So, that's in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's perfect as well, though. Imagine leading from that perspective, having that perspective and just sitting back and being like, okay, so I know what this person is capable of. I know how to get the best out of them because of their human design, because of my human design as well. Like, I then not only know how to get the best out of them, but then now I also know how best to communicate with them to get the best out of them. Like, it's just
exactly.
like, it's just invaluable information, and it's going to be incredible, Kat. I cannot wait. Yeah, I can't wait.
Thank you.
You're so
thank you.
welcome. I do have a question just to backtrack to the really basic stuff. So I reached out to a couple of people who were really interested in human design, and I really wanted to get to, you know, below surface level stuff with human design, which is why our interview has been really in depth, I feel, and explored a lot of different topics that you can't just find online. But one question that was one that I thought was really quite important, that came up, was how important is it to know your birth time in human design?
Look, I developed a questionnaire to try and cover off on this. I actually get everybody to fill out that questionnaire when they're coming for a reading these days. But I originally tried to develop it to help somebody determine their birth time. And I did a lot of testing of that with people that knew their birth time, but I asked them not to share it with me, and got them to fill out the questionnaire, tried to make a determination of their birth time, and then asked them for their real time to see if I could do it.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard.
Yeah.
And the reason that it's hard is because when I'll try give the most simplistic example. You could have somebody who has an emotional decision-making process, okay? They're emotionally defined. And you can have somebody who doesn't have one gate in their emotion center. It's completely white. If the person who has the completely white emotion center has been deeply conditioned in their childhood to operate and make decisions like a parent who is emotionally defined, they will answer the questions in the questionnaire based like they're an emotional decision maker. And they might not be. And they're operating in conditioning. However, in saying that, I have had many clients come to me who don't know their birth time. And we have looked at a lot of different elements. I need to have people look at this questionnaire. I evaluate an entire day and the differences in a day. It is a service that I charge for because it takes me time. And then there's a phone conversation. And I have most of the time been able to get it much closer than what many other people can because of those tools that I've developed. But there is always a risk that because there is the subjective answering of questions that can be based and the way that we can operate in conditioning, there is a risk that we don't get it right. But in my experience with reading after hundreds and hundreds of charts, if something isn't right and it doesn't resonate, people can feel it. And we know we've got it wrong.
Yeah.
The information is not really, it's so specific. It's not really subjective. It's not like, I think that at the end of the day, that it is something that we can work out, and it's something I have worked out many times in the past, but there is a risk.
Yeah.
That it can go wrong because of that element. But I feel like I have the tools. I have probably more tools than most people do to determine if someone doesn't know their birth time. So I really, if you don't know your birth time, just come and pay for that service that I offer, and let's see what we can figure out.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's so important. It's so funny, when I meet new people and I find that there's that connection, I'm like, do you know? I'm like, oh, do you know what, your sun, moon, and rising is? And then now I'm just like, okay, so do you know what your human design is? I'm like, but it's so good. So many more people are actually aware of what human design is, and I love it. Yes. And so I think a lot of my listeners listening to this, they're going to be like, right, okay, cool. And they're going to be able to know that even if they don't know exactly what their birth time is, how much they're going to be able to gain from learning more about their human design chart just on a personal reading. If you're a business owner, how much you're going to be able to learn about your business structure and your own people, if they're willing to support your workplace and building something that's based on value and trust and communication. And as a singular person who's coming to get a reading as well, is you're going to learn so much more about how to use your energy and empower yourself when you actually get into the depths of your chart and to understand and to put everything together, which is incredible. But yeah, not knowing your birth time isn't the end of the world. And as you said, with you having developed your questionnaire and everything like that, I know I struggled personally with like a couple of the questions that I had. I was just like, I don't know, but that obviously
it's not the be all and end all, it's the overall. And this is the thing, it's very, very hard when you're trying to, and there's no right and wrong in those questions,
No.
like I'll expect you to answer it differently to the person next to you who's got a defined sacral center. So, there's really no right and wrong answers in there. And when you look at it as an overall, the main thing I got out of developing that questionnaire was to see with people, particularly who know their birth time, is to see where they're operating in alignment and out of alignment with their design, so we can have the most impact in that reading for them. And and I just remember with yours, I was like, wow, you know yourself pretty well.
I've done some work. The universe was like, hey,
a bit of work.
Yeah, like the universe was a bit like, hey, I'm just going to cause a massive shitstorm in your life and you're going to have to go and sort it out. So I'm like,
I agree. That's how you work it out.
Yeah. So, I did that, and then, cross paths with you, and I'm so glad that I have. But coming to the end of this interview, I would just really love to know, how can people get in contact with you? How can people work with you?
Thank you for that. Look, at the moment, I suggest people go to if they're interested in a business reading, to go to my LinkedIn page. All my career history is there, and the program that I've written for business is listed up there as well. So that's just my name, capital K Katrina, and Adami, which is Adam with an I on the end. You can tell that I've said that a few times in my life.
Yeah.
And for personal readings, I'm not the best social media girl, as you know, but I do have a little Instagram account, which is Human Design with Cat, all one word and lowercase. So, you get to see a few little videos of me talking and see the style of which in my mannerisms. And I think that that's important for some people, just to connect with the real human that is behind, the information. And, you can get human design readings done in a lot of places these days, but you just got to follow your gut or follow your emotional wave and choose the right person that you think that you're going to want to learn off.
Yeah, definitely.
And be receptive with.
100%. And I'm so glad I chose you. Oh my. Okay, I think you've frozen a little bit. Oh, there you are.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay, and then to finish off, Kat, my last question for you. What are you currently working on letting go of?
Oh my goodness, this is a changing thing. But at the moment, I did brainstorm a little bit thinking about this.
It's so funny. I was actually talking to my friend. I had lunch with him today. We're both projectors, and I was talking to him, and I was like, it's so funny how Kat was when I first approached her to do the podcast. I was like, yeah, let's just do a podcast. You're like, I'll have to listen, and I'll see how you structure it and stuff like that. And I'm like, it's so funny how different we operate with things like this. And I love that you brainstormed this answer. I love that.
I'm always perpetually working on something.
Yeah.
So, it's a little bit like, which basket do I put my hand in to pull to pull something of value for myself that I feel is a really authentic share to have here.
Yeah.
But, it's actually really kind of interesting. It's actually being of service to others.
Yeah.
Because I, as a 5-1, and I've often have this like inbuilt default that I'm here to be of service to others. And to be quite honest with you, it's often in human design that we use our gift against ourselves. Use the thing that is like what we've been given as our key tools in life, whether it be empathy or whatever. But for me, this has really unhinged me a lot in wanting to be of service to others, because I have come to the conclusion that this is like way less important than being of service to myself. And these days, I care less about like, I want to be in service of self first.
Absolutely.
First and foremost, always.
Yeah.
And I've learned some really, really huge lessons about it, actually. And so now I think that actually makes me approach my work really differently, because I really do want to help people, but I'm not attached anymore in the way I used to be to really, really wanting to see people make change. And don't get me wrong, I am invested in every person that I talk with, but my ego is no longer attached to that in the way that it used to be. And it's so much more freeing. And so it's something I have to remind myself with all the time, because I could spend my entire life, looking outside of myself as a 5-1. And the more that I look within, and the more that I just do my own work and trust that my beautiful clients will come and find me and they'll recognize me, and it's not a need now, not coming from ego or anything else. It's just a much more authentic place for me to drive my energy from. So yeah, it was really great to think about that.
Yeah, I love that so much, and it's so important to, I love how you explained it as well. Like, you're invested, but your ego isn't, which is, that's huge to be able to kind of separate your wisdom with your work, and knowing that you can help, but knowing that it's that it's not going to impact you if somebody doesn't take on board what you're going to say, or like if they don't get the results.
Right.
I think that's so huge. And again, what I mentioned kind of earlier about, people pleasing culture and stuff like that, and it's just taking the ego out of it, which is sometimes the most difficult thing to do. Which is incredible.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's taken me a long time to figure that piece out. And even, now with the way that I approach talking to people about my work, that just don't have the same drive to kind of be like, oh, look at me, this is what I'm doing. Yeah. This is, it's like, it's just I don't know, I'm kind of loving being a little bit older in my life and having gotten through some of that stuff that I used to do when I was a little bit younger, and feeling like I was here to teach everybody something about whatever, know, and it's no longer like that for me. It's a really nice balance of giving, to myself, and then making sure I'm in a really good space and really present, and then just trusting that the rest of it will flow in tune with that.
Absolutely. Well, Kat, thank you so much for being here today. I'm sure it's not going to be the last time I have you on the podcast. I'm excited to actually go in depth about some other topics, and I'm really excited to, hear the feedback that we get from this. So, and the questions that might pop up from people, and I'm excited to see who you go out and expand and share with, and how you're going to kind of shake up the business world for the better. I'm really excited to see that happen. And so
thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful.
And here's to this amazing podcast that you do and have put together, which is an absolutely perfectly aligned expression of you, and for bringing yourself, into this present moment with me, so we can share this time. And I really have appreciated, your wisdom and your insights and your great quirky character. You're the best.
Thank you so much, Kat. Oh, we need to go have a wine together soon.
I know. What are we doing now? It's Friday.
Well, until next time, lovely, I'm gonna... Okay. Wow. How amazing was that conversation with Kat? I am really looking forward to your guys' responses and feedback. So I would love it if you could get in touch with myself and Kat even, and ask any further questions or give any feedback that you have on this episode, and just let us know how, learning a little bit more about human design has really opened up your own way of using your energy, and maybe even clearing out some blockages that you may have, or if you view the world through a little bit of a different lens now. Because I know that when I first really delved into human design, it really changed my perspective on how I was living my life. And I really committed to implementing my strategy, my waiting for an invitation, and it has worked wonders for me. It's actually what's guided me to be producing this podcast that I, continuously get really great feedback and engagement from. And I'm so happy that it's reaching so many people, and I'm so happy that it's helping so many people. So please, if you've got any questions or feedback, please let myself or Kat know. And again, reach out if you want to expand further into this human design realm, especially with Kat. She knows what she's talking about. She's incredible. I spoke with her before starting the interview, and I said, Kat, what would you like me to introduce you as? And, I was like a human design expert, and she was a bit like, oh, I don't know about expert, but I would definitely call her that. And I just think she has such a unique gift to bring to this world, especially in the business industry. So if you're looking to build a little bit of an empire where people really enjoy working for you, or if you're thinking that there's a way that your company can be structured a little bit differently, or if we can start to value and embody some different, things in the workplace, and you can do that based on human design, please, again, reach out to Kat and let us know what you got from this episode. It would be truly amazing to hear back from you guys and hear about your thoughts and opinions on human design. And also, guys, please let me know any different things, any different ways of healing, anything that you're really curious to, engage in and listen to, any ideas you have of how you may be able to heal yourself. That's not kind of the status quo. That's not through just a pill or a substance or a doctor's recommendation. That's, really truly getting into the work that needs to be done, and not a silver bullet. Please let me know, and I'll be more than happy to explore the idea. And even if you yourself are offering something that you think is incredible, that you have a certain medicine that you can bring this world and you would really love to share it, again, please reach out to me. I cannot wait to hear back from you guys. I hope you all really enjoyed that episode of the Healing Bridge podcast. I hope you learned something. I hope it expanded your mindset, and I cannot wait to have you back. Until then, you can visit my website, mccawfitandnourished.com, or my Instagram @_anita.mccaw, and I will be updating you all with little projects that I am going to be doing and delivering. So head over and keep an eye out there. Until next time.